Back because I was sick all week.
So you just brought something out of the archives. Yeah. You just brought something out of the archives on them.
We live.
We ain't gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna talk about that on live.
Well, hey, one of my pastor mentors said, if it's good enough to preach once, it's good enough to preach twice.
Funny, I was Paramore preached my first installation, and I went to his church next week. And he preached, and he saw me there. And he was like, "Well, it was good enough for Stanford's.
I'm bringing it right back.
Good enough for y'all."
Right. The other question, I guess, is always, how many dashikis came to church today? Any dashikis? No.
I didn't have a lot.
No,
and well, I know they do.
They're still
down
the
there. They do last Sunday.
They do last Sunday.
Okay. But surprisingly, we did not do the Black National Anthem.
I didn't do it either, but it was Communion Sunday, so that was my excuse.
Right.
We're going to torture him next week.
We're live, fellas.
No, we ain't going to do it. What's happening, y'all? How y'all feeling?
What's up, y'all? How's everybody doing?
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect Podcast.
Brought to you by the African American Community Fund. The African American Community Fund, established in 2020, of the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio, supports Black-led and Black-serving organizations throughout the 32 counties of Appalachian Ohio to elevate the quality of life and address disparities in African American communities. Please check them out at www.appalachianohio.org/AACF, or you can call them at 740-753-1111. Check them out.
We're about due for a new script for that, a new copy. They call it copy. We're due for a new copy. Be like some of the podcasts like Tony Kornheiser, they just make up their own after a while. They're like, I'm not reading this. They just say whatever they want to say.
But I mean, it is a good place.
Yeah.
They do good things.
Excellent.
Pastor Todd just got a $10,000 check. He got about 5 new pair of gaiters with the
eyeballs on them. With the eyeballs in them. Listen, they gonna get this. That's Black History. That's Black History. You want to wear Black History? Listen, if you want to dress for Black History, don't wear dashikis or kente cloths. Wear long suits down to your ankles.
Shoes with fish in them.
Shoes, matching belt, 7 buttons. You know what I'm saying? A handkerchief and a flower and a chain on your vest. You gotta have all of them.
A hat with a feather, a big feather.
You gotta have them big barrel pants Jeff still be wearing. And trust me, while y'all cracking out Jeff, in 30 years y'all be wearing them skinny suits like we be wearing for Black History Month. Them butt crunchers.
Listen. I gotta wear the big. I can't wear no skinny stuff.
I barely care myself.
See
to be
the whole
honest.
Outline, Joe.
To be honest, how you doing, Pastor Glenn? Sister KK, good to see you, Mo. So glad to see you, Rashad. Be sure to like and share. This is going to be an excellent episode. Can't wait to introduce you to our guest. Can't wait to let you listen to Jeff cough all night. It's his turn. It was my turn last year. It's your turn this year.
Listen, I'm sicker than a dog, and the only reason I'm here is because of our guests.
Because of our guests,
so
it's worth it.
But I love the Lord.
So the guests will get sick too. Congratulations. Yeah. Well, Pastor Jeff, here we go again. There have been a series of escalating attacks in the Middle East. And I'm not just talking not the Huggy Bear had shoes with the fish.
Y'all young about that.
Hey. We might be too young, and I am one of those too young people. But if you had the right uncles,
Oh, yeah.
If you had the right uncles, then you were exposed.
Made you watch the movie.
Right. You had to be on it. You had to be on it.
I was in love with some Pam Grier, boy. You should talk about.
I still am, bro. But anyway, but escalation in the Middle East. Now, we've already talked about Israel and Gaza. It is horrific, what is still ongoing. They're hoping for another ceasefire, but you're talking over 25,000 Palestinians who have been killed in this conflict. And not to mention, nor to dismiss or demean the 1,200 plus Israelis brutally slaughtered, innocents as well. And I mean, if you had a chance to listen to the descriptions, I would not say on the air some of the things that were done. And I'm talking beyond just murder. I'm talking rape. We're talking attacks. We're talking a lot of brutal things that you don't associate with, or we don't like to think about warfare and modern warfare. We just think bombs and IEDs and things like that. And we forget that that's another part of the brutal nature of war in lots of places, by the way, not just in that area. But America, once again, is getting more involved. There have been a series of attacks. 3 soldiers tragically killed by a drone strike some time ago. It was actually several weeks ago. But how reporting works for security purposes, we find out what has happened on their barracks in Jordan, or near Jordan, in their barracks. And there's 3 soldiers, young soldiers. We had actually a testimony today. Don't know if any of the Osborns are on, but their son was supposed to be there.
Wow.
And their son was supposed to be literally there in that place, in that spot with those soldiers. And he got kept home because of turf toe. Wow. And if I could have switched up my whole sermon, it would have been, I made one mention of it, but what a difference a toe can make. I mean, just the smallest thing made him undeployable. Ooh. And they, at the last minute, determined him undeployable, and he would have and should have been right there in the vicinity. We were, of course, praying for those families and that tragic loss and service to our country. Just
all service members.
Right, all of them.
I was blessed enough when I was in the Navy that it was a peacetime. Mm-hmm. And I did not have to go to any wars for the small period that I went in there. But, there's a quote that says, we're only the land of the free because
of the brave.
Home of the brave.
Right.
And there are some brave soldiers who are putting their lives on the line to go out there and fight for this country. And, I salute you.
And in spite of what I'm about to say, I still do believe in the value of our soldiers ensuring security around the world. It is an unfortunate necessary factor of American security, which, as much as we talk a lot about wars and the military industrial complex and the fact that the United States is so ingrained in the business of warfare, as Americans, it almost feels unfair that all of that really does and has, for the most part, relieved us of actually facing any of it.
Right.
To be fair, I mean, it's you almost justifies in a way, if you want to put a value on, having a certain sense of security. That's why we can walk around, drive around, shop, and live and go to school without having to think for a moment. I mean, for a moment, not one time does it enter into the average American's life that something will happen to them because of a foreign adversary on American soil. That's what made 9/11 so shocking, and the few shootings that you might see. It's so rare. It's not the reality that they see over there. But we're striking back. Biden has already, and the military has already struck back at the forces. And apparently there's the belief that Iran is financing some of these, what they call different rebel groups, the Houthis, these different groups. And first of all, every 2-3 years we hear of a new group we didn't know about before that either came from a different group or evolved from a group or was already existing, but we didn't know much about them, or they didn't really have, maybe they ascended because some other group got tamped down. So it's Al-Qaeda, it's like ISIS.
It's like the Warriors. The Warriors.
Right.
Cats on the skates.
There's always more. Right. They just come in. And so now it's the Houthis, right? But my thing is, here we go again with escalation in the Middle East. And if there's one thing that's ever been proven, is that none of these efforts ever result, or ever will result, in my opinion, in any definitive victory as we have defined victory in a military sense. And I guess, again, that security part, I guess that's the victory. Because we're never actually defeating these people. And maybe that's, going back to Israel, as much as we hate to see it, and I hate to see it, we're speaking out against it. Palestinian allies, like a lot of black pastors, are stepping up to speak out against it. But Netanyahu has made it very clear, we want to completely destroy Hamas, and we will keep at this until we do. And here's the difficult thing. Maybe in a way, that's the only way, but is it even possible? What's the outcome? Because it feels like the Middle East, just in general, is just an impossible endeavor for anybody.
They make kids don't die. They multiply. They just keep on.
They didn't ran out the Russians. They've run out America a couple times. Chinese gonna fool around and get ran out of there too. Give them a shot at it. Most European nations have tried to conquer the area, the British, and whatnot. I don't know what to make of it. I just know that if this goes on, we're going to be back where we started. And I feel like, I don't care what they declare, this whole Middle East war never ended. It just transfers from country to country and place to place, which to the average American, again, is the same place. Nobody really cares.
There's always strategic planning.
On whose part, though?
Well, I'm just saying, when you're saying it never ended, there are people just planning their next attack.
Yeah, right.
It hasn't ended. People are just making plans on what they want to do next, how they want to go in and do something next. This is an ongoing process. It doesn't stop.
And I think, the funny thing in the story of our modern military, it was a controversy, but it almost wasn't. Because of the way our news cycle and social media works now, even during the Obama years or after the Obama years, what was found out about what they knew during the Obama years as far as it being unwinnable or a lot more complications, wastefulness, things of that nature that, was almost a mirror image of what happened in Vietnam, where they knew a long time ago this was going nowhere.
Right.
I think a lot more people died, obviously, as a result of that back then, where it's not us necessarily as many, certainly enough. Thousands have died. Americans have died in the area, as opposed to tens of thousands in Vietnam. I think the number is like around 50,000 or something in Vietnam. But you're talking 3,000, 4,000, in the area since the war on terror stuff. But at the same time, it's just like when you said whose strategy, I'm like, what strategy works? What? This is not even, I keep saying it, not to be pessimistic, but to be realistic. We have now won a war in the traditional sense since World War II. Korea ended in a stalemate. You know what I mean? Korea ended in a stalemate. They fought all this to each other's territory, ended right back, 38th parallel, whatever they called it, when that was over. And that's when a lot of our black men were over there.
I think if Vietnam, you want to call it that Desert Storm war, if you want to call it airstrike.
Okay, so they won Desert Storm in a couple weeks, right? And all it did was make people more angry and pissed off and create more terrorists. We left Saddam Hussein alive. Who knows if killing him would have been the answer? Who knows who would have filled that vacuum? You know what I mean? So it's just, with all grace to any president, any leader, any military, I don't care, Colin Powell, Obama wasn't my dude, Trump wasn't. To me, it's a wash between the two of them when it comes to the Middle East, to be honest. You throw Biden into that, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Clinton, you throw all of them into it. That's just an unwinnable situation. Scott said there could be no victory in the Middle East because every side has a different definition. That's true of what victory is. I like what Carol said. Brother Carol, World War II was fought for land. Wars in the Middle East, like war in Japan, was fought for ideology. Wars like this are almost impossible to win without wiping people out completely. That's true. That's absolutely true. And so I just fear like this is our ongoing reality. And I guess it always was, but we grew up with this idea that somehow peace, they were shoving the UN down our throats when I was a kid. United Nations was the greatest thing ever in the 80s and 90s, and Middle East peace accords, all that stuff. And even after 9/11, it was like, we're going to wipe them out. And,
I woke up I grew up with my father waking up screaming in the middle of the night from the war.
I
grew up with him screaming PTSD.
Yeah.
And just problems after problems,
Right.
So.
And of course we have the legacy of black soldiers, and poor people taking the brunt. And let's not forget about the indigenous and native people of those lands who we often forget about. And they really are innocent. Yeah, and then we're talking about, harboring, which would be a whole nother conversation if I went down this path. Because we talk about, they're harboring, the fighters, the terrorists, the militant groups, the rebels. What choice do they have in the matter, honestly? What choice do they have in the matter? Because we just saw what happened in Afghanistan when we finally pulled out, and they put an immediate target on the backs of every Afghanistani who had supported the United States in any way, shape, or form that couldn't get out, period. And I mean, they're disappearing, they've been jailed, they've been killed. So what choice do they really have in the matter? And I get it. It sucks to say that there are tunnels going under people's houses and hospitals and schools and stuff like that. But it's not like the teachers was like digging the tunnel, like,
Right. What you ain't gonna do is say period like that again. That's what you ain't gonna do. I'll tell you that right now. Well, you will not say period again.
No, man. I mean, it's a difficult thing to watch because we know that, our children, our young men, our young women, again, are brave soldiers. And I don't even have this picture of every military general or secretary of state or whatever, just some warmongering. I'm sure some of that exists somewhere, and I know it does. And it's an unfortunate part. I almost think it's like more of an ingrained mentality than it is like some corporate, I'm going to get rich off of this. I know that exists. I don't think that's really the majority of people who are involved in this. They're simply serving their country, doing their duty. And some of the decisions that we like and don't like are made off of this harsh reality.
Absolutely.
They're made off of that harsh reality. Get them before they get us. That's where we're at. And so we're striking them. And so I don't know if you know much about how this strike happened on our soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
But they said that the reason they didn't catch this drone strike from the enemy is because one of our own drones was returning to the airbase at around the same time. And they were confused, didn't realize it was an enemy drone coming in. Because ain't no pilot in there to talk to.
I think that was the strategy, though. I think that was what they done.
And that's crazy that, now this is going to be a machine war. So that just gives me pause. I don't have the answers. I just know, as I said today, and I said last week as well, that I hope that the church continues to take not an anti-protect yourself stance, but an anti-warmongering stance. Like, if it can be avoided, we should seek to, but prayers to those soldiers,
please,
and
to the families,
and hopefully prayers to a de-escalation. But to be honest, it doesn't feel like there's much hope for de-escalation. I feel like there's another group. It doesn't take long for a generation of people who, by the way, a lot of these fighters will have been born at or after a 9/11, for instance, which is now some 23 years ago, right? So the new generation of fighters...
They're not waiting to the 18 like us.
No, they're not. And they could be child fighters. They could be 18. They could be in their 20s. But what I'm saying is that 9/11 and the war on terror is now their new generation's inspiration.
Right.
It's like they remember the Alamo kind of a thing. And so they're being raised saying, this is how... Look at the decimation around us. Look at the poverty. Look at the inflation around us. It's because of that. They don't know any, I don't want to say they don't know better. They might not know any more balanced any more than we do, because we only get one side of the story too. And here we are, so prayers to all of our soldiers, and hopefully we don't start this trend of sending more back over there. They've been attacking ships, bases, and we just don't want to see more lives lost. So, salute. You don't hear that a whole lot on this show, but salute.
Sign up Christian and Alliance for the draft.
Listen,
put them in a draft.
Hey, play Fortnite over here, brothers. Play Fortnite over here. Where we're gonna lighten the mood right quick. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for that meme of the week.
It's meme of the week. Meme of the week.
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect, ladies and gentlemen.
It's meme of the week. Meme of the week.
Thank you. Send us your memes of the week.
We are, these are all jokes. We are just playing.
All right, so we have another video meme, and this one did not come from the internets. This one did not come from any of our Church Funny or Church of Laugh or whatever they're called. Now, there's a new one I've been following. It's called Only Church or something like that. Only Saints.
Okay.
It's called Only Saints, which is hilarious. This one is actually from an old movie, but it's a hilarious scene, and I believe every pastor can relate to this. This is the most reluctant eulogy ever preached, where the pastor has to preach a eulogy that he does not want to preach for someone that he'd rather not be eulogizing. This is from a movie, by the way. This is a movie. It's not real, but it probably is real in most of our pastors' hearts. We just can't do it like this. Unmute us and put us on. Play it.
John Maccabee lived a trifling and worthless life. He went around Montgomery daring somebody to cut his throat. Last week, somebody obliged him. He lived like a dog, he died like a dog. Undertaker claimed the body. Choir sing.
Not choir singing.
He lived like a dog, he died like a dog. Undertaker, take the body.
Jesus.
That is James Earl Jones in the Vernon Johns story. And if you don't know who Vernon Johns is, he is the pastor who preceded Dr. Martin Luther King at the Dexter Avenue Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And he was a rabble-rouser himself. He fought against segregation, police beatings. He started actually like his own farmer's market. And he was called to a very dignified church that kept fighting him because they were convinced that progress was already being made.
Right.
And he was causing problems. And they had a scene in there right before this where the deacon board came in and said, you need to do this funeral because the family gives a lot of money. And he was like, this guy never came to church. He never did the right thing. He was out there in the streets. I'm not doing it. And it was like, no, you're going to do it because they gave a lot of money. And that was the story behind it. And this is obviously fictional. But, you know, the deacon said, you're going to do it because you're the pastor of this church. And so that was the sermon he came up with.
How many funerals have you had to do that you was just like, I don't know about this one, Doc?
Brother, listen, I get kudos for doing some pretty good eulogies for just no matter who it is. But I'll be honest, there have been once or twice and I wish I said, you know what? What can I say? The other person was a quicker draw. What can you say? Because they probably got a few bodies themselves. I mean, what are we doing? You know, so Carol said Pastor Mag, because he died 4 months arrears on his tithes. Take it out of insurance. That's what I say. Make sure you tell the undertaker I need my cut.
I've been to funerals where there's been more people outside smoking weed.
Oh, that's a given now.
Than
That's a given
inside
now.
the church at the funeral. I've been to them with a, you know, and
Who has time to buy flowers when you need to get T-shirts made?
I honestly love the biker funerals.
Oh, I did a biker funeral.
I love the biker, but the bikers never come inside the funeral.
Oh no! The last time I did a biker funeral, and I was so glad to serve the family. For the record, matter of fact, one of the young sons of the young man, played on my boys' basketball team, and so I was glad to serve the family that time. But man, they had like 30 bikes outside, right outside the window of the funeral home while I was doing the eulogy, and they was just going like revving. They was having their own tribute outside, and I'm like trying to preach. And I'm like, well, this ain't an organ, but I'll try to find the key, you know. But it was so unique. But I mean, I love that story. Now, I'm kind of convinced that Vernon Johns was probably not, because James Earl Jones literally spends the entire 90 minutes of this short movie just barking at everybody about everything. Everything. Like, everybody's a coward. Everybody's weak. You know, everybody's trifling. That's the entire movie from start to finish, basically. But that's a hilarious eulogy, to be honest. You know, have you ever wanted to?
Oh, several times, but
And people need to realize, and you just speak to this, people don't realize the positions they put the pastor in, and they think we're already experts at not just eulogizing strangers, but eulogizing difficult situations. They're like, say something good, and I'm like, what?
You literally go over there beforehand and you try to get, tell me something good that I can say. Give me, write me something down. Tell me what did he do in his life? Did he have a hobby?
Man, I asked some kids one time, like, tell me about your friend. It was a young man who died, and they were like high school, so they were like, he knew how to get money. I'm like, all right. Right. I mean, how do I celebrate that? I mean, I guess there's a way you could. There's probably some super keep it real preacher out there that would, and everybody would hop and jump. But for those of us who still have some semblance of decorum and I guess this weird expectation that we should be able to say something righteous about you, what do you say if the person like never took care of any of their kids? He was a great family man, or they'll pretend like what their reality wasn't. Like people, like, dude, all 6 of his girlfriends are here. Why are we sitting here talking about what a family man he was? And
but the T-shirt got the angel wings.
Listen,
sir.
They're going straight to heaven. He gets to heaven, they take the sign off, and this is hell.
Closed for repair.
Right. So that's our meme of the week for this week. You're always welcome to send in your memes to religiouslyincorrectpodcast@gmail.com. We welcome all memes. We probably won't play most of them. And if you do, get the privilege, make sure you thank us. But, just remember, this gentleman lived a trifling and worthless life. And he lived like a dog and he died like a dog.
Choir sang.
Preacher's mad when he walk off like that. Choir sang. Nothing they say is going to be happy after that. Well, we want to thank our sponsors. The Phillips Family Care of Businesses, Phillips Care Lawn Services. They've been in business for over a decade. They've been in business for a decade ago. So they need to update that. They've been in business for almost 20 years. They got your lawn care handled, outdoor plowing, cleanup, trimming, anything that has to do with the outside of your home or business, they can take care of it. And trust me, I know, because we are satisfied customers, both residentially and commercially. Check them out by calling 330-219-7916. And while you're at it, if you are in need of any cleaning services, any renovation services, call Phillips Care Cleaning Service, residential and commercial, floor cleaning, basic cleaning, deep cleaning, upholstery, move in and move out, and all sorts of restoration and renovation services serving Trumbull and Mahoning and surrounding counties. If you'll pay them, they'll drive to you. Check out Phillips Care on Facebook at Phillips Care LLC.
And we also are brought to you by Action, the Alliance for Congregational Transformation, influencing our neighborhoods. Listen, we have been boots on the ground for over 20 years here in Youngstown, Trumbull area. Listen, we are excited to present to you all, particularly in Trumbull County, our latest candidates forum, which will be held February 20th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m., correct? 6 p.m. at the Second Baptist Church of Warren, Ohio. Hey, man, we got to make sure we differentiate now. The Second Baptist Church of Warren, Ohio.
Steubenville.
Please don't. So we are excited. So please mark your calendars, come out, show up. We want to make sure that these officials, these candidates, speak directly to the community in which they're going to serve in. Amen. So check us out.
Thank you so much. Pastor Jeff is going to introduce our guests to us. We're so excited. If you saw the title of our show, the title for tonight's show, the theme of tonight's show is Wrap It Up.
Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. And we want you to make sure you like and share. This is going to be a vital conversation that you don't want to miss. And we want to hear your input on swinging it to Pastor Jeff. Let us know who we got here today.
We are so proud. We are so honored to have my friend, a great woman of God. She's doing great work in the community. I was talking to her earlier, and just to start this thing off right, there are 48% of all new HIV cases are in the African American community. 48%. Are y'all hearing me? And I think we kind of overlooked it because COVID came up and we kind of like put it on the back burner, but it's still here and it's still making a big impact. Shelley is an advocate. She is a survivor. She is just a downright, person who gets into the mud with those who are dealing with this issue. So do me a favor and put those cyber hands together for my girl, Shelley Turner.
Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
You want to talk right in?
You got to talk right in.
Right in.
This is live.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for being with us, Shelley. We're so grateful that you've come to talk to us about this. I mean, vitally important, but as Pastor Jeff mentioned, an issue that has flown tragically under the radar for years now. And the issue is the ongoing epidemic, which actually the word for now is endemic, meaning it is sort of a permanent condition, like it's gone beyond a few years. It's been going on and on and on, of HIV and AIDS in the Black community and how it affects our community. And of course, being religiously incorrect, how the church has or has not responded well. And perhaps there are stories of churches that do, and have responded well. So if you could start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and everything we're talking about tonight. Shelley has, agreed and given us the green light because this is a different type of subject. And so we appreciate it. Everything that she's sharing is what she desires to share. But can you tell us a little bit about your story, in particular, sharing your own journey? Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. I've been waiting for the church to step in on this for a long time. Like I said, my name is Shelley. I've been HIV positive for 26 years. I just had my 26-year anniversary in October. So getting a little old. But how I contracted, I was 26. I was going 26 and I seen, was young, had 2 daughters. I was just working a new job, just graduated from college. And I seen this guy across the street that I was like, ooh, he looks fine. I think I want some of that. And
I want some of that.
And, being young, I had, like I said, I had my daughters. I just graduated from school and we just started talking and I didn't ask the questions that I needed to ask. And so we had a sexual encounter and I didn't have any side effects. I just didn't want to be bothered with him anymore. And somebody heard in the grapevine, somebody told me through the grapevine that he was HIV positive. I asked him, he denied it. That's when I found out I was pregnant. I went and got a test done immediately. And it came back, we had to wait back then in 1990s. We had to wait back in 96. 97. We had to wait 2 weeks. So in the 90s, you had to wait 2 weeks to get your test results back. So that was a grueling 2 weeks. So it came back. It was negative. So I was like, okay. He said, CDC says come back in 6 months to get retested. But by that time, my daughter was already born. I went back and got tested. And when I got tested, I didn't think anything about it because the first one came back negative. So I was like, okay, I didn't pay attention. Well, my doctor, which is OBGYN, he's not in the area anymore. He called me and said, I need you to get to the office. So I got off work. The girls were at daycare. I got off work and I went to the doctor's and it was dark. Like everybody wasn't there. It was like really eerie to me. Like, where's everybody at? So I went into the doctor's office. It was the receptionist and the doctor that was my OBGYN was there. And he put me in this room and I was in the room for like 20 minutes. And here he was outside the door waiting to come in because he didn't know how to tell me. So he was like really like, I don't know how to tell this woman who I just delivered her child that she's HIV positive. So he came in and he just says, you have an antigen that causes AIDS. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? The first test came back negative. Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? So he says, I'm going to need you to go to this doctor. I'm like, wait a minute. What are you talking about? He says, well, I'm going to need you to get your affairs in order. And I said, my affairs in order?
Wow.
I said, I'm 27 years old. I just had a baby. I got these 2 girls. I'm over here. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. So I'm like over here by myself and I have no support. So when I left, the receptionist gave me a card and she says, call this doctor and he'll help you out. So I called him, and it was a pediatric doctor, Dr. Van Glarsik. And for the first, I think, 8 years, I seen a pediatric doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, I went through for the next 20 years not ignoring it because I was constantly taking my medicine.
Okay.
And I was going to the doctors. I wasn't telling anybody.
Okay.
My family knew, but nobody else knew.
So you contracted it while having a baby?
No, I contracted it. Yeah, I contracted it and also got pregnant at the same time.
And so, but the child did not end up.
No.
Okay.
No, thank God, because I would have been devastated. They would happen was, and back in the day, they used to, when you had a child and you didn't, that you were HIV positive and your child, they tested her for the first 2 years.
Okay.
So the first 2 years, she constantly, every 6 months, she would get blood work done.
Gotcha.
Blood work done. Now, what they do is when somebody is HIV positive and their child is born, what they do is immediately put that child on medicine. Immediately. Wow. But there hasn't been a child born to HIV unless the mother does not know her status. Otherwise, a mother can have a child, HIV woman can have a child, a negative child. If they take medicine while they're pregnant, they will not contract it. They will not pass it on to their child.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that's a factoid right there that I'm sure somebody was wondering. I was certainly wondering. Now, if you don't mind us asking, they said you had the antigen, meaning HIV, which is known as the virus that causes and can develop into AIDS. Is that how it's defined now, how HIV, like the relationship between HIV and AIDS? Because it's been so long. What is the relationship there?
The relationship between HIV and AIDS is like somebody who is HIV positive, if their viral load, meaning their HIV viral load is so high, what it does is it invites other opportunistic infections. So that's why back in the day people say, "Oh, he died of pneumonia."
Right. There it is. Yeah,
he died of pneumonia, but by the time he got there, his viral load was, I think it's your viral load has to be in the thousands to be considered AIDS.
Okay.
And it also has to be your CD4 count has to be at a certain level too.
Okay.
Your CD4 count is your good cells in your body that fight off everything. So when my CD4 count, because people who are living with HIV, it's you can live a long time, and it's not a death sentence anymore. But if you don't take your medicine, it is.
Okay.
You can die.
So there's effective treatment for HIV and AIDS that can allow you to live with either. And I guess the question I did want to ask was, are you HIV positive or an AIDS
I'm
patient?
HIV positive.
So you're HIV, but it is not transitioned to what way they call AIDS.
I've never been diagnosed with AIDS. Now, some people who are, that's a trigger point. Some people who are diagnosed with AIDS, when you say you're diagnosed with AIDS, that's just saying your viral load and your CD4 count got so low and you got another disease.
Gotcha.
You got like cancer or pneumonia or liver, whatever. You got another opportunistic disease.
Right.
That's when they consider you having AIDS. But a person who has an AIDS diagnosed can get to a point where they can get undetectable again. They'll never have just HIV, but they can get to a point where they'll be undetectable.
Right.
Which if you're undetectable, you're untransmittable.
You keep answering questions before we.
Undetectable, you're
basically untransmittable.
Yes.
I want to go back to the story, if you don't mind, Jeff.
yes.
That you shared the story, and I want to talk about a couple of things that you pointed out.
Yes.
Number one, the denial.
Yes.
The denial from the person was, to your knowledge, and we're not here to bash that person. And maybe you wanted to at the time at a certain point. I don't know how you felt during that time, right? That run a car through his house or whatever. But was it genuinely didn't know or knew and didn't care or was ashamed, or what do you think? Didn't want to admit it, or felt they had it under control, or
no? He never had it under control. He just didn't want to admit it.
Didn't want to admit it.
But the other thing that I knew it was him because other women have started coming forward.
Wow.
So and he disappeared, hurried up and disappeared, which was fine with me because,
right.
It's not a thing. But yeah.
Okay.
So going back to that, because now that you're in this place, now obviously you're young, you still want to date, you still want to have a good time. You know what I mean? You still want to, how do you, because let me tell you, if you guys don't know, I was Shelley's pastor for several years. And when she came into my office and told me, I think I handled it pretty well.
You did.
But it crushed me. You did. I went home and I cried.
Did you?
I did. Because, I didn't know. It was the first time I had... It was literally the first... Well, my uncle, but I was so young, I didn't really know him, So this was the first time in my adult life I knew somebody. And I was just like... this is Shelley. This is 107.9
right.
Loud.
Exactly.
This is cool. You know what I mean? And I was her daughter's godfather. You know what I mean? Right. We were just like cool. And when she told me, you said it so, blasé. Just want you to know. I'm like, okay, all right, no problem. But I'm.
Well, if you had it that long, you're just used to.
No, it wasn't. No, I wasn't. I told him out of pretty much selfish reasons for me. Because I wanted to see a reaction from somebody else.
Wow.
It was selfish because
So you hadn't told a lot of people before that?
Well, some people, my family knew.
Okay.
But not people I knew.
Just your acquaintances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certain people do know.
Okay.
But a lot of people, it was like
millions of people know now. Millions upon millions.
And there's a reason for that madness because I got tired of sitting on the sidelines seeing my women being diagnosed and actually people dying still. And I got tired of it. I'm like, we need a voice. They're like, Shelley, your voice is like, I'm like, nah, not me. No. They were like, no. And the Ursuline sisters for years have tried. I don't know, Sister Kathleen. Okay. She has tried for years to get me to do this.
Wow.
And she's like, when you're ready, God will let you know when you're ready.
Wow.
So when I walked in your office, it was like something like, I have to tell him because I want you to know like a little bit like, okay, that's what she's going through. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Well, she's holding it pretty well.
And you otherwise would never have known as the pastor. There was no, because again, we'll get into this later on. I don't want to, but I think most of our views of AIDS and HIV is still archaic, and we're looking for somebody to walk in like staggering, and all of a sudden they lost all this weight, and like very obvious, evident, almost like the very last stages of cancer or something like that. That's what we're looking to see. Yes. We don't just think of people just living their lives and then coming and saying, this is where I am, this is my status.
And that's exactly why I did it, because I take away the stigma and the look of what HIV is supposed to look like.
Wow.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, Shelley, how many years? So when I tell people now, they're like, well, you could have told me at the time, you might have said.
We love being some hindsight people. Like, I would have been supportive. I would have, but that's never true, ever.
They never call you again.
Or sitting around hearing conversations. I used to be around, people and just hear their conversations, how they react to people. Oh, they got that stuff.
Well, back there, this is back in the 90s. We're talking about, self-destruction. We're talking about, when it was big and, the only person we saw make it was Magic.
Well, I was about to say, when you said that you could live with it, I was like, well, you got the Magic Johnson pills. You know what I mean? That's basically. You got the
same medicine I do.
Right. Listen. And there was actually an episode, I think it was South Park, which I'm giving myself away, but they had an episode with Magic Johnson, and one time they were trying to figure out how does he have the cure, and the cure was he swam in money every day. And the joke was, at the time, if you have a lot of money, you can survive this. And the joke was literally he just rubs money on himself. But that's at that time not totally untrue.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking though, is that the earlier you catch it,
is it like anything else? Like the earlier you detected, the better chance?
The earlier you detected, the better chances you have it. That's why getting tested is so important. Because if you contract it, you can be undetectable in 30 days. 30 days. When you're fine, you're vital, you're taking your medicine, you'll probably outlive all your friends. But you have to get it. But there's people some ladies in my support group, the way that they found out was when they had an AIDS diagnosis. They were in the hospital.
Wow.
They were knocking on death's door,
wondering what was wrong.
Yeah, and they weren't testing it for. But you know why? Because they were heterosexual women, and they didn't think that they would be. They were at risk for contracting HIV.
Well, let's go back to that, because I made a mention of this at last week's sermon. I literally made a mention of this when I had done my beat up on the old people sermon the week before, and I did kind of the younger people sermon, and I kind of threw in as a joke. I think Mike can attest to this, where I said, while we are shaming all of the women for promiscuous behavior, what's your body count, this, that, and the other. You need to look at these men. That's what struck me when he said denial. I said, because the high rate of STDs is not a bunch of loose women necessarily. It's a bunch of men in denial who, by the way, are jumping in and out with all of these women. So whether they are the cause, which oftentimes they are, or whether they're the carriers from someone and become the cause, sooner or later. Like, we often put the stigma in general of nasty women, so to speak, the spread of this, which in smaller areas like ours, like the numbers are ridiculous for STDs.
Yes.
And to live in a town, and I joked, I saw something about a single something recently, and I'm like, who is still single that hasn't dated each other in this area yet? Like, I mean, either you've been with them or don't want to be with them, and that is what it is. But it's almost worse in smaller areas where you have kind of conservative old school values. People are still private about things. And not to say it's wrong with being private, but maybe dishonest in the way the gentleman was. And then such a tight-knit community where it sounds like a joke, but it's not really a joke. Right. There is a sense of everyone's been with everybody. Oh, yeah. And so I wanted to ask you, for those, when you mentioned heterosexual or people who've been married for a long time, is there a dormancy to HIV that if a person slept with somebody 10 years ago and been married for the last 8 years to somebody else, heterosexual monogamous married, that they would not have known it, their wife or spouse or whomever or husband wouldn't have known it? Because does HIV have like some timeline of progression, or can it be dormant and then I can't believe I've been living with this for 12 years and didn't know it, and it didn't turn into debilitating AIDS right away? Does that happen?
10 years. 10 years. It can stay dormant in your body for 10 years.
Jesus.
Yes.
Jesus.
That's why I get tested. Like, I've had, you talk about younger people and stuff. The younger people know about it. The younger people are more accepting to somebody who has HIV, but also, I can't just get them to, use a condom or whatever. But with them, it's women between the ages of 35 and 60 now, highest contracting HIV.
Wow.
Highest.
So to speak to that, and I wanted to encourage you who are watching, Carol, we're going to answer your question. Please stay on for a second, because I wanted to get to that falling off the radar situation. But I can think of a few reasons, and I might be off or might be on about that. Their statistics have been saying that, generations younger are actually having less sex.
Yes, they do.
In some ways. I don't know if it's stopped or not, but, teenage pregnancies or out of wedlock, I guess you say unhealthy out of wedlock, if that's what you want to call it, young, unable to do, have been down for years, steadily declining since the 90s, actually. It's almost some of the panic preaching, that cultural panic preaching we've been hearing for years, like, has been almost like a lie for years, because we don't know the numbers. We just know anecdote and shame on you style talking, of old, I always saw a porch talk. These young folk today, they out here sexing more than they did before. Actually, no, you were sexing more, and you probably are right now. But to speak to that older, like, younger people seem to have a more sensitivity and openness of sickness, like you said. Not always want to do protection like they should, but more sensitivity to sickness, acceptance of all types of health conditions, handicaps, and older people. You said that older range, and something clicked in my mind. I said, well, these are still people who are living in that fantasy world and living by those old school values, where if I do what I think will protect me, which can be as simple as I think this dude or this woman is clean enough or respectable enough or whatever, and they're not a so-called street person, or I haven't heard whole stories about him or whatever, like, we still think that way. If you're about 35 and up, that's kind of, well, if I mess around, at least I'm sneaking off with a guy that seems to be, or a young lady
in the church.
In the church. Well, right. He's a church goer.
In the church.
I get those ones too.
Correct.
I do.
Correct. So do you see that as some of the reasons?
As why because I test out there. So I do a lot of HIV testing, and I see a lot more of women who are divorced, who are going back out in the dating field. The dating sites are horrible.
Okay.
Horrible. Because if you meet somebody, we're women, we want to be with somebody, but ask questions. Start asking questions.
They don't have an AIDS category on Match.com?
They don't. No.
Or BlackPeopleMeet.com? Like, do you have AIDS? Yes or no?
No. And then you kids can't marry somebody off the internet you just met a month. 6 months. You can't. You know, because you don't know. So, for instance, I'm gonna tell you this quick story. This lady I was testing, she met this guy. 6 months they were married because he was in the church because he had a good job. But then a month after they got married, he comes to her and says, I'm bisexual.
Okay.
And I like to go once in a while. I like to go out and have sexual intercourse with young boys. Woo! Either you accept this or you go back to where you came from. And she accepted it.
Did he tell her after church while they was at Red Lobster?
No.
In the church suit?
No, but that's
Did he have on his 4-piece suit with gators?
But that's a type, you know, and she's old and she was in her 40s.
Right.
You know, she's, you know, as we say, should know better. But
it's that whole, I'd rather have a piece of a man than no man at all, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I don't want no man.
Right. So here's a question, because legislation has changed, though, right? That if you knowingly have sex with somebody and don't disclose it, is that?
Oh, it's harsh. Ohio has one of the harshest laws in the United States. It has the harshest. It mimics our HIV criminalization law. Mimics the rape law.
Wow.
That's why a lot of people won't get tested, because if you know,
now you're responsible for it.
And if you don't know, there's no paper saying I got a test done. There's no proof that I know.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there like that, and that's hard, because I'm in the community. Like, okay, come on, just know your step. If you know, get tested. If you know, get treatment. If you don't know, let's talk about PrEP. Because there's a pill out there to prevent from contracting HIV. There's a shot out there to prevent HIV. So why not? If you're sexually active, take it.
So there's a shot. I don't know if you ever seen a commercial. It's called Aptitude. It's like
yeah, I've seen it.
Aptitude. That's a pill. That's a shot.
The Saints hate that commercial. The Saints hate that commercial with a passion.
Well, it's a shot that stops.
Because it's mostly same-sex couples.
Yes. Well, yeah. I do hate the commercial. It is misleading.
I'm just saying that the old school Saints hate it because, and that's another part. Funny because they're advocating in a way, but they're also perpetuating in a way.
Yes.
That might scare heterosexual people away because it doesn't represent what we would call, and please don't take any offense, but what we call normal, traditional, heterosexual, married people or individuals. It just keeps showing lesbian and homosexuual, you know,
trans,
and it's showing that as you need this shot, which I'm like, I wonder how they feel about this, and then I wonder how heterosexual people feel.
I hate that.
Maybe it's telling heterosexuals I don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't. Not only you're providers.
It's another trick of the white man.
I've had providers actually say, I send a client to them, and he'll say, "Well, you're not gay, so you don't need this pill." Wow. Oh no, this man has just had,
you're not gay, so you don't need this pill.
This man just had 10 partners in this week. Yeah, he needs PrEP. He's got 10 partners.
He needs something. He needs some Viagra.
A trophy. A medal.
Jesus.
He needs
that too.
He needs an entrance to the Players Ball 2024.
Yes. So tell me. So now you're in this position. What is your timeline, if you don't mind? How many dates do you go out on? And have you had experience with somebody who's like, maybe, you know?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have. Dating is very hard. It's very hard. What I do is I try to get somebody to get to know me first. I'm not out the door unless you now. I mean, it's a little hard now because everybody knows, you know, you've seen this now, or you see me on 21. Everybody knows. But dating is hard because you don't want to say it right away because then they'll see just all they'll see.
I ain't the lead off. I ain't what you want to lead off.
I want people to get to know who I am and like, oh, I didn't walk in your office like, hey, by the way, you know, welcome to the church.
Right.
I want you to get to know me, who I am. Now, we're on a date, I'll bring it up because if somebody will say, well, what do you work? So my work kind of like helps me go into say like, this is why I do my work. So they can take it or leave it.
So speaking of dating, because people don't date and, you know, first night or first encounter interactions are so common these days. I mean, people are just hooking up, and at all ages, by the way. I mean, does that become harder because what used to be known as dating and getting to know someone is really like a feel that person out if we want to go home together tonight? You know what I mean? I'm not saying you're that type of person, but obviously that's an expectation for a lot of people, especially if you don't set those boundaries. Like, does that make it harder? And can you imagine it making it harder for other people disclosing, knowing that their timeline to disclose is so short?
Yes.
Because if, you know, especially if you're just out there wanting to have a good time, that's the life you choose to live, but you got to bring it up.
But we can't even kiss.
Right.
I can't even give him a goodnight kiss. So I'm at dinner, and that's what I'm trying to bring that conversation if you want to kiss. But otherwise, it's hard.
Now, when you say you can't for the audience sake, you're saying you can't or you wouldn't without disclosing?
I can't. Legally, I cannot.
You cannot without disclosing.
Because what if I kiss him and then he finds out and he's upset and then he knows about the law? Then I'm out in court. And then, with you two standing there trying to defend me.
We write letters.
We'll write a letter. I know somebody that writes really good letters. Whenever there's an injustice. Whenever there's an injustice, they have a letter ready. Mike did mention in California, as of 2022, it's no longer a felony.
No, it's not.
In California, for people who are HIV positive to have unprotected sex.
And what it is that they don't have to disclose. If they're only way they don't have to disclose is this. Like Virginia just changed their laws too. Ohio's so hard. Virginia just changed the law is saying that if you are taking your medicine, you're undetectable, you're going to see your provider, taking care of what you're supposed to be doing, you don't have to disclose to anybody that you're HIV positive until you're ready. Gotcha.
Now, could they still choose malicious, like if you almost plotted?
No.
They can't prove that either. Okay. No. I do want to hit Carol's question earlier. Why do you think that it's fallen off the radar? Because even before COVID, I don't remember a big push to educate about this disease. And of course, I grew up in the AIDS era.
Right.
The little boy, Michael Jackson's friend. We just heard the Ryan White. We heard the stories. Arthur Ashe to the blood transfusion. We heard about that. Then I started hearing older people talk about it. Of course, there's an intersection with sexuality here. Rock Hudson, the famous white actor who was the heartthrob, who turned out to be a homosexual, who died of AIDS. You got the guy from Queen, Freddie Mercury. You got all these stories, and then it did kind of like go away. Like mid-90s, my world at least, mid-90s, by the time I was in high school and coming out of high school, it was like not really a thing.
When in the mid-90s, what they were doing was that's when they start getting better medicine. And so the gays, men were taking it. But what they weren't saying in the 90s is that how it was hitting the black community.
Wow.
It was hitting the black community hard. And not just it was hitting women hard, black and white. But now, I mean, it was hitting us hard. Because I know, I think when I just went to the U.S. conference on HIV and AIDS in D.C., and it was, I met a woman. She was like 32 year survivors. That's the most I've met. Anything over 32 years, they're gone.
Wow.
We are the aging population, and we're doing well.
Wow.
We're doing well, but it's.
So you're saying medicine became more prevalent.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, there was a hard hit in the black community that wasn't being addressed.
Oh yes.
And we're going to hit that in just a minute.
That's a good question.
And would you feel, and I'm going to lead into Glenn's question because that's good, that when you talk about women not getting tested, of course, heterosexuals not getting tested, and black people in general, maybe gay or heterosexual, do some of the health disparities, fear of the health system, lack of health resources, and, health became a thing, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
For us.
Oh, yeah.
Last, 10, 15 years? Like a stronger thing. Now we're into like the mental health kind of thing now. And I hate to say it's a trend, but it is in a lot of ways. But like we weren't having like these health fairs and all this stuff. And churches hosting health fairs and community health fairs and male wellness walks and all this kind of stuff that we're talking about now. Which again, AIDS, you're talking about heart disease, increased awareness, diabetes, all of these things that have been afflicting the black community that we were not addressing. but AIDS was the most unpopular and uncomfortable one.
Because you got to talk about sex.
Because you have to talk about, right. So I'd rather talk about food and drinking church punch and getting diabetes than talking about who I slept with and all that kind of stuff, which leads to Glenn's question. Do most insurance companies pay for testing and multiple testing? And is that a barrier, or is it something that people should tap into because it exists?
They will test. When you go get a STI test done, they'll test for everything except HIV, unless you tell them to. Because HIV is actually very expensive to test.
But it is covered.
It's covered, though.
Most people don't know it is.
Yes, it is covered. It is covered. It is covered.
Are you tested? When you say STI testing, you're that is sexually transmitted infections? What are you saying? Okay,
yes.
okay.
It's no longer called STDs. It's called STIs.
STDs sounds so much better because it sounds scarier. STDs. All y'all out there with them STDs. You got that, what they say, call it that nasty woman's disease. That's what they need to bring back. You got that nasty woman's disease. No, but so when you say STI testing, are you talking when somebody specifically goes to a clinic to get STI testing, or just their checkups or wellness visits? Are they tested for STIs then, or do they have to request it?
Both. They have to request, even when you go to your wellness check.
Okay,
and you get
your physician.
And you take all that blood and stuff, you tell them, hey, add an HIV test.
Well, I was literally just at Dr. Goodwin's office, and when I had the high blood pressure, and she was, I had to go downstairs and get blood, and she said, do you want me to test for AIDS? I'm like, I've been married 20 years. If we got AIDS, somebody in some trouble at this point.
And they shouldn't say the AIDS. They should say HIV, yes.
She said the AIDS.
I know, the AIDS.
She said the AIDS because we're black. You want to test it for the AIDS?
See, that's why people don't get tested.
But that's why we don't get tested.
That's why you don't get tested.
There was a comedian, I forget which one it was, and of course this is, no, we're not forgiving you. No. You need to get tested for that cough. Again, I should have brought my super strong knock you out cough drops for you. But I mean, and again, and I kind of want to talk about the jokes, and I want to pivot to the church response. But it was a joke, a stigma, and in some ways it was good-hearted. Like the one guy was, I forget who it was. It might have been the Comic View days back in the day. And he was saying, remember when the old folk used to think everything would give you AIDS? You know what I mean? He was just saying, don't use that washcloth, baby. That's how you get AIDS.
Don't sit on that toilet.
Don't sit on that. Yeah. That's how you get, I keep the plastic on my couch so you don't get AIDS. But like how that became, because that was the Magic Johnson story of people not wanting to play with him. When he came back, I mean, that was my childhood. Magic Johnson going on TV. And now that I'm grown, and I hate to say it like this, but now that I'm grown, and again, because of the treatment, the AIDS part ain't the worst part to me anymore. Mm-hmm. Now the worst part is you told the whole world you were sleeping around on your wife at a press conference.
At a press conference.
And nobody knew, though. Nobody knew
they were all doing that. I mean, it was.
He was having people come to his. He was literally having women come to his room.
I'm talking about when in that, what was that, the All-Star game when all of them was like, nah, doc, we can't play with you. Nobody knew. Nobody knew if you sweating, was the sweat gonna get? Are
we sure we didn't know what they didn't accept it? Because I feel like the reason it came back was because I think they didn't accept what the medical. I don't want to say they didn't know. I want to say it was still too new for them to accept the medical advice.
Well, I mean, you got to realize this is a physical game. You get cut. You get cut.
But it's a doctor. What I'm saying is the doctors had already said,
right,
if he sweats or bleeds on somebody, that's not going to necessarily give you. You got to have a cut to a cut. You got to
You got to have an open cut. We got to run wounds together. Who do that?
The Native Americans?
Who do that? We're not doing that.
Pocahontas' dad?
We're not doing that. What did you say?
You think Cat Williams knows?
Cat has had it for 97 years.
It's called Cat back. Cat knows. And Michelle makes a good point to Jeff's point. When you tell a doctor, I don't need to be tested because I've been married a long time, it does not have to be because of that. You could have taken blood or drawn blood or given blood or something. That was the Arthur Ashe story. Yeah. It was a blood transfusion. And so, not to knock that, but I'm just saying for all of us who feel confident, you do never know if you've had any medical procedures or something might have happened. That is still a way that it could, even though there are safeguards in place. Unfortunately, there's still, as minute as it is, a risk to it. But that's hilarious. Cat Williams would know.
Somebody, like if they have a cut in their mouth, and they don't know they have a cut in their mouth, and you're all tugging them and stuff. Yeah, excuse
Tonguing
me.
them down.
No, don't.
Welcome to
you might
France.
Test it. Yes.
Right. So we want to pivot to the churches and Black community response, which in a lot of ways are synonymous. It's almost like a parallel between the Black community and the church, because they're almost one and the same when it comes to certain issues like this. It's really not. So for those of you that will watch and say, well, the church did this, the church did that, well, you probably didn't go to church and still felt the same way, to be honest, whether you went to church or not. But we know even in the broader church, 80s, 90s, HIV and AIDS was associated almost solely and exclusively with homosexual behavior. And when you think homosexual behavior, you're not just talking, I'm gay or identify as homosexual, that's my orientation. You're talking wild gay sex, being wildly promiscuous. When you think of homosexuality as it was portrayed in those days, it's just, especially dudes, just going around trying to screw any other dude in a park and a this and a that. And, just like, as if heterosexual dudes aren't doing it all the time, in the church and everywhere else. But that obviously creates a stigma, but it also created like almost a whole theology that it kind of fed into. And I grew up in like a half evangelical sort of thing where you were hearing that real conservative kind of take, and it was white and Black. Yeah. This is God's judgment. This is Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yes.
God is cleansing the earth.
Oh, I heard that one.
He's wiping them out.
Yes.
There was a preacher, and after these latest controversies, he was a Church of God in Christ preacher, and they put up some of the old 80s videos of them preaching at their convocations, and he literally got up and said, God is using this AIDS to wipe them folk out, and he's not by himself. Every denomination, every, persuasion, there were very few sympathetic voices in pulpits.
Yes, there was.
To anything, because again, you're conflating those two. Not to say that there was an almost, I don't want to say it's exclusive, but there was an incredible disproportion with the homosexual community.
Yeah.
And so it just fit too well, which I feel like put us decades behind.
It really did. And ostracized so many people because you're looking at, at the time was I was in the church.
Right.
I was in the church, and I could not go to my pastor and tell him that I was positive. Not after what he just preached. You must be out your mind. I'm not doing that.
He preached.
And he preached it. And I was like, oh, well, okay, well, girls, we're not telling him. And then
wow.
Who am I gonna go to? And it was just a confusing time. And you can talk, and if he would have talked about HIV without sex, you could talk about HIV without the sex part. You could talk about it. You could talk about how the stigma that the church puts on it, how it was crazy. It really is. At a time, it was a real big struggle for me.
Wow.
It was a real big struggle.
Have you ever seen any turning points, or did you see some markers where, or maybe found yourself pleasantly surprised at a response in a traditional Black church from a traditional Black preacher? And we're going to talk a little bit about where you found support, but I want to stay in our spaces for a minute. Have you ever found surprising, even without disclosing, but just sitting back and listening and hearing like, I never thought I'd hear that in a space like this or from a person like that, and it kind of maybe gave you a little bit of hope or assurance, or has it pretty much been, no, it's either been condemnation or silence?
Condemnation and silence, not nothing good. And that's why I was excited when you asked me to come, because I was like, wait a minute, this is an opportunity to get up in here with these two and talk about how we need to address this, because you have people in your church that are living in silence, and they're sitting there in the pews, maybe even singing in the choir, but they still hold that stigma inside them. They still hold that alienation where they can't tell anybody. And like,
what if they still don't want to? Like, is that still there? Like, do you feel like a pressure, I you like should speak out? Or do you feel like it's their right?
I always tell my ladies, stand in your truth.
Okay.
Because I don't want nobody coming to me telling me about me being HIV positive. You can't come nobody can come and tell me anything. Oh, Shelley, I heard you. No, I don't care. They can't come to you and say, "Well, Shelley, you know your friend
Right,
Shelley."
right.
They can't say that. They can't say that to sting me anymore.
Okay, answer this question since it popped up. I never heard of the acronym MSM, but that exists.
MSM.
But is that still the greatest risk factor, as one of our viewers is stating?
Yes.
So men
Yes.
having sex with men is still the greatest risk factor.
Especially black men.
Like,
Why? I mean, is there a reason why? I mean,
because of Atlanta. No, I'm joking.
It's not to say that our young black men are having more sex or less sex than the white counterparts. It's this that it's taboo to wear a condom. It's they get in certain situations where they want to acceptance and stuff like that, but they are at a rate right now very high. But black women is right behind them.
Okay.
We are not far. I'm talking not far behind them.
Now, when we say black women, are we saying black
heterosexual.
women with black women, or black women who have interacted with these black men? Because the whole thing was the down low thing, is not to pick on Atlanta, but that became
women.
They got a down low too?
No, women can't give it to women. We can't contract it. We can't give it to.
So women cannot contract it from women, even if they are. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know how
That's
deep.
be a blood sister.
Okay, I'm saying.
But women, it's harder. For
I am
a woman.
saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost.
I know.
I just learned.
My bad.
I learned how sex worked the night London was conceived.
I'm sorry, but no.
I don't know what to tell my kids.
Women cannot. It's harder for women. Women can give it the virus to men, but it's very hard for women to give it to men.
So it's almost
the
impossible.
penetration.
Yes, it's a penetration, but also when we're gonna get a little.
Church mothers, log off now.
Please, but when a man ejaculates into a woman, it sits there. It sits in our walls. So that's where we're getting it. It's in our.
So it's no
walls.
different, honestly, than like when we say COVID gets in your system
yes.
and sits there. That gives it a chance to germinate or whatever. So just to be clear, and this is necessary, and maybe this is a great form to do it, as opposed to, well, we still need to do it in our churches. Bunk that. We talk about everything else now. Everybody's swag surfing, absolutely. So we can talk about this. So women can almost not give it to other women at all, and it's very difficult for women to give it to men.
Yes.
It's very difficult for women to give it to men.
Yes. It can happen.
It can happen, but I'm just saying it's not.
It's very difficult.
So it kind of goes back to my point about some of this stuff, at least not all of them, but some of these so-called I got with a nasty woman, or she's the one going around giving it. It's actually the men. It's always the man's fault. Isn't it?
Ever since the beginning of time.
Ever since the beginning.
So basically,
the apple had AIDS. I mean,
when you leave,
it was an HIV apple.
So basically, when a woman gives it to a man, it's because more than likely he's tried to cross the Red Sea.
If a woman gives it to a man, more likely she may not know that she's HIV positive, and her viral load is very high, and her CD4 count good cells are very low.
But he's asking, is it because she's on her monthly?
Yeah.
Oh.
Does that have an impact?
Yeah, that would have a big impact.
That would have an impact.
That would have a big impact. Yes.
Okay. I just try to use crossing the Red Sea for the
I was going to say
language. I just for the people out there.
The church mother's already logged off.
I'm like, Red Sea.
Right.
But yes, that is very.
Y'all, please post your questions, because she has given us so much knowledge. And thank you, Carol. We do need to have these honest discussions. One day I'm going to get Mary Duke back on here if she'd be willing to come on, because the sex lady, she scared us to death with them pictures.
Really?
Those pictures.
They were bringing her to our church.
Oh.
Lord,
those pictures
have
were serious.
mercy. Gonorrhea. I mean, it was
herpes.
Like, this is
crabs.
Was it the pictures that you guys see when you were like in high school? Like,
but we were like 11 though.
But hers was a little more graphic.
Yeah, hers was.
And then she had the real trick of whatever, trick of something. Trick me into not wanting to have sex no more. That's what it done.
Didn't work. Didn't work.
I want to be able to come to the health fairs and bring my material without feeling it being in the corner. Usually when I go to a church health fair, you know what I mean?
You're next to the bathroom somewhere.
I'm right in the corner all the way to the back.
Behind the choir rows?
Yes.
They got you behind the old children's church decoration?
And I feel like this, like, okay.
There's another girl downstairs in the basement, all the way to the back, by the exit sign.
All the dirty folk go back there if you need it. But
Then you watching them go back.
Right. Deacon's over there taking notes, ticking off. But, you said about, people are in church. And it's funny because even we have like a cancer garden, and we've had this cancer effort thing. And it was a shock to me that the office staff said to me, oh, well, there are more. They just choose not to disclose that they ever had cancer. And something in me was like, well, why? Everybody is always celebrating. But I just left out the whole personal conviction or nervousness or just privacy sense. And, so sometimes people feel like, well, if I step out in any way, even just in conversation, that I'm going to be pressured to become some advocate or kind of figurehead or what's the word I'm looking for? Mascot, yes. Like they're going to, and when you talk about shame, I'll be shamed for not sharing my story. And the people that, if I go to a Shelley and they don't know Shelley, but they'll be made to think that because the word of the day is exhibitionism and everybody's always telling their story, that I'll be seen as less than to a fellow sister who I'm actually walking on this journey with because I'm not sharing my story the way they are. And I just think that can be a part of it because someone's like coming to church where people say, don't ask me to come to church because y'all gonna make me speak. Don't ask me to come to church. You know what I mean? I ain't coming to church because y'all gonna call my name and ask me where I go to, that old, maybe turn to my neighbor kind of thing. And I think that can exist to a point of, well, if I do get involved with this, I'll either be associated with it in a way that I don't want to be. Aspersions will be made about me. If I'm heterosexual, they'll assume that I must be homosexual or have had homosexual experiences, or they're going to expect me to become this mascot. I got to be a voice too now. And if I don't, I feel less of myself. Other people feel less of me. Have you ever encountered, or can you see that kind of dynamic?
I mean, because it's really big with one, a lot of my women that I in our support group, I trust me, not all of them are out like me.
Okay.
A lot of them are like, okay, we'll come to the support group, and it's a tight knit. So we, you have to come through me to get through this group, and it shouldn't be like that because I want it to be like, I want to be able to be out there in the community and doing things and stuff. And sometimes you just see me. I have a team behind me, but sometimes you just me because I'm the only one who's
willing to be out front.
Yes, not. I don't care what we say.
So, like, we want to talk about the church. I don't know if Jeff can concur with this. One of the struggles we have with the church when we say we want to do let's say I just want to do an awareness night at our church. Let's just say I'm going to take a Wednesday, do an awareness night at our church. The people that's going to show up is going to be like the mother's board. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they lost all their flame and fire, because I'm sure some of them are exchanging dentures somewhere once in a while. But sometimes I think we have to be more intentional because sometimes we think we've addressed something when we haven't. We've just kind of preached to the choir or provided more information that it may not be the most relevant to.
I think what you do in that case, and I've done this several times,
like voting,
maybe not
like
that.
These voting things we do.
I literally would say we have a Wednesday night Bible study, and then I just spring it on.
But that's still older folk, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not the whole church. Yeah, it's not the whole church.
Have it somewhere like here. Like if you tell them that you're having something, don't have it in a church because you're not gonna. They're gonna think they're going to Bible study or they're gonna be, And then if you do that, they're like, well, why do you tell me about this beforehand? And I don't need this and stuff like that.
But you do. You don't see. I think people don't know that they need it.
Oh, they need it.
I think people do need it.
And again, I think there's the sexual part of it, both sexual activity and sexual orientation, or the assumption of orientation.
But we need to quit. Christians have sex.
Oh, but we're not just talking about Christians here, Jeff. We're talking about black people in general.
Black people have sex.
We do.
They have sex.
We do.
But we don't like having that conversation.
We don't like having conversations about it.
And that's what I want. I'm trying to make it comfortable for you to have a conversation about sex. You're right. Everybody does have sex. I'm trying to get my OBGYN to be comfortable about talking about my sexual health. And he can't.
Wow.
It's different. They don't. You know, we just don't talk about
You
it.
can give away cash on a Wednesday night.
I think
still
Scott,
under the
Scott
church
had,
mothers
had a question. What
measures?
about needles?
Yeah.
Are needles still?
Talk about drug use and needles in general.
Intravenous drug use in this area, syphilis is high.
Okay.
High. When syphilis is high, HIV is right behind it.
Okay.
Right
What
behind
exactly? And I'm not trying. What exactly is syphilis?
Syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease.
That's what everybody in World War II and Vietnam got.
Yeah, but you can get syphilis from skin to skin.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, you don't have to have sex. You just skin to skin. It's dangerous out there nowadays.
Go on ahead. Go on ahead. Do
a bubble.
this. Right.
Walk in a bubble.
So, but the drug epidemic, when we're talking about shared needles, are there resources and, you know, safeguards, as Scott is mentioning, to protect that usage of needles? I remember I got a call as a council person and last summer, and somebody put up a picture on the page and said, right here, which is my ward, there's a thing of needles sitting off a sidewalk.
believe it.
And it was near a health center, and they think it might have dropped out because it looked like it came out of a bag or something, like literally a bunch of medical style. And I just went out there literally with a scoop and like scooped them into a thing, not hand to hand or anything, to get them out. Because what happened was the city had come by and cleared brush away, and it revealed this pile of needles that had been there. Oh, wow. It had been there. But, you know, that's one thing, but we're talking active drug use and the prevalence of it. And again, there's a stigma there. Right. Scott said, Tuskegee, you don't know syphilis? It's what the government gave to black people, essentially.
That was syphilis. Okay.
That was syphilis.
I knew Tuskegee Airmen, but I didn't know. It was
like, we're going to give these Negroes syphilis and see how they live. Watch them go to church.
It's prevalent now. It's big now. It's big because
I knew they had something, but I didn't know it was that.
So it's
syphilis.
amazing in this era of technology, and I kind of want you to speak to that, of technology and medical advancement and medicine advancement and all of that we are seeing a surge of it while we have more resources and helps and treatments than ever before. But the stigma is still in the Stone Age.
Yes.
And the conversation is still in the Stone Age. And all the things that could have supported us in this are in 2024. But the conversation is still in 1984.
Yes.
You know, that's my diagnosis of the black community and the church when it comes to this.
So what would you like to see? And first, and before you go, because first of all, you just got an award from didn't you something about 21 or something?
Oh, 21 News did a story on when I was it was for World AIDS Day.
Okay.
So they did a story on me, and we talked about me being diagnosed for 26 years and getting tested. Getting tested. I just kind of told, you know, my story about me being a prevention health navigator for this region. And what that is, if I do a lot of HIV testing, education in the community. That's why when you see me out there, I'm the condom lady. Just educating and now I really want to focus on 2024. I really want to focus on our black community. I done got our counterparts together. They're good.
So you're saying the white community is far more adjusted than the black community?
They're good. Right now, black women are 6 times more likely in 2024 to get an HIV diagnosed. 6 times than our counterparts. You know, it's not being. I tell my lady when a woman comes to me and we get tested, I'll say, well, you know, what brings you in, yada yada yada. But also, we gotta start asking questions. You just can't be just jumping into bed with somebody and you don't know their status, you don't know their sexual preference, you don't know nothing. You're just jumping in bed with them.
Now, do they have, like, they got COVID tests? Do they have home?
Yes. Oh, yes. OHIV.org. You go there and get a free HIV test sent to your home discreetly, and they will walk you through it and get your test results in 15 minutes. Wow. Or call me. I do HIV, Hep C, and syphilis tests, and you get your results in 10 to 15 minutes. So when you see me behind the corner behind on my bus, or when you see me behind a black,
that's almost worse though.
What?
That's almost worse than the 2 weeks.
Why?
I don't know why. There's something about it. Just like, you know, I take this test. It's like I turn around and the test goes womp womp. And like, does it make a sound or something?
What's that old whammy?
Scott, can you just like expound on what you said? You said the stigma in the Stone Age, because the cause is almost completely behavioral, if you just expound on what you mean, I didn't grasp fully what you meant by that. But I wanted to ask, it might be controversial to some people, but when you talk about this being mostly a man-to-man disease and then man spreading it to women, men to men, men spreading to women, black men, how has that, or do we have any knowledge or numbers or correlations intersected with the massive incarceration of black men, where there's often a lot of talk of they're not the same man inside that they are outside, and they come back outside and again they're back out in the public, and we're not just talking about the stereotype guy who gives all the signs of what we call homosexuality. We're talking about the tough guy that was not so tough inside or whatever. Is there any correlation to that, considering the decades of men coming back into the community and may have engaged in that inside with no indication outside?
Wow.
Yes, there is. I don't have the numbers on it, but a couple people, women I know, that's how they contracted it. But also, they test them, but the jail system, they test them when they go into the prison system. They test them. They test everybody.
So they're tested when they go in. Do we know if they're tested once they've been in? They don't test them coming out.
They don't test them coming out, and that's where we're missing them at. They don't test them coming out, because so then they could come out, be positive, and because they don't have it, they're not getting tested, so there's no test saying that they're positive.
So when they test going in, is there a disclosure happening there? Like, hey, you about to be bunked with so and so, he's positive.
Oh, I'm pretty sure in the jail, in the prison, they'll find out.
They'll find out
because of the meds. Because when you're positive in prison,
they have to treat
meds.
you.
Yeah, they treat you. So you're getting those meds done.
Thank you for that clarification, Scott. He said drug use or sexual contact, and I just want to tap into that. And I know we're coming up on time, and this is such a great discussion. So I appreciate, Mike, are we doing okay?
Yeah, we're good.
We're coming up on time, because this falls into what a lot of church, and again, I just say black culture in general, because we might not be over the pulpit bashing, but black people still have this moral code almost.
Yeah.
The stigma behind sexual promiscuity, and Christians in general, and sexual, and drug use. I was going to say sexual promiscuity and drug use, where any advocacy for the adverse effects of it can seem like excusing the behavior or encouraging the behavior, almost like people still have a stigma about, should I bless unwed mothers' babies? Because now I'm co-signing on sin by treating, and again, we're still living under the shadow of this is God's judgment that might have been. And Lord knows I don't want to ask if you were ever told that. Well, you were promiscuous. That was gonna, you could choose the actions, not the consequences, and the devil, all that kind of stuff. But while it's true to a point, it's not untrue. It's not a helpful. Right. It's not helpful. It's not helpful to that, because we all have, some consequence or another. Right. Exactly. And I always say, the difference was you just didn't happen to get pregnant that night. I mean, that's what it is.
I just got caught with my hand in a cookie jar.
Right. But what I'm saying is, so because we still don't have effective ways, and maybe we feel like we're still not supposed to. Because anything that sounds like approving of or even tolerating drug use, sexual promiscuity, then that bleeds into advocating for the treatments when it happens.
I don't think I don't feel that you're advocating. I don't feel that you're accepting what they're doing. But if that help is if you know that you can advocate for that person, then don't worry about what they're doing behind closed doors.
But what I'll say is from the preacher's standpoint,
I think from the preacher's standpoint, it will, one thing always leads to another. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start getting into this whole trans conversation. We're going to start getting into whether homosexuality is correct. That's just, it's a snowball effect that's going to happen.
And there is it's sickening, because I think Jeff and I's generation is wrestling more, and youngers, of course. I mean, there are some there are some people out there that are far more liberal and, affirming than I can even ever be at 41, because I was just still raised under old school, values. And I do believe in certain biblical precepts that to me will never change. I think what's changed for those of us who still believe in traditional biblical precepts is how we approach and focus on condemnation versus ministry, love, and reconciliation. But many of us are never going to stop preaching that God's plan for mankind is one man, one woman, We're never going to stop preaching that. But I'm not over here preaching about you gays out here destroying our, that whole thing.
Well, when I'm at the thing, when I'm at the event, I don't really say, as much as I don't want you to have sex until you're married. I tell my girls, I don't want you to have it until But
if it has happened,
but it happens.
But I guess the whole fear, and preachers won't say it out loud, but that's why we're religiously incorrect. If I provide more resources and help, that will open up the door of acceptability, whether I'm preaching acceptability or not. The fact that I have opened up my door to resources. Nobody, and there's this whole thing where there's no shame anymore, and nobody has any restraint, or because they know there will be help for everything. And when I say no, it's not like I'm going to go get AIDS because I know there's an advocate out there, but just the general behaviors that lead to it. There are so many different, including us not being as, I don't even know how to describe it, not being as dogmatic and condemning of sexual promiscuity. I still preach about it. Yeah. We preach more about it from a wisdom standpoint, from a righteousness standpoint, if we want to be right with God, this is still a part of living right before God. But it's no longer just this throwing the book at people just to scare folk either out of the church or in the church and hiding it. Which churches, by the way, since we're talking about men to men, churches are dominated in leadership by men. Yep. Have this crazy patriarchy and masculinity that's still attracted to church, which is hilarious with what we tolerate with lack of masculinity and with femininity. But at the same time, there's like, we're in control of all of this, but we've also perpetuated the down low by forcing people to be more machismo than they really are. And so we've perpetuated that. And it's such a crazy conundrum for us, because I kind of don't want you to really live in your truth and sashay in here, but I also don't want you pretending to be something you're not and sleeping around and with men and women at the same time. And it leaves us with this crazy conundrum, because we're like, don't switch in here, but so the guy doesn't switch. He doesn't show it.
But now he's on the he's
on the DL,
And not only that, we also, even when we deal with marriage counseling, we come in there, they come in there, half these people are already staying together. We know you haven't, you know what I mean? It's just a reality.
They did it before they came to marriage counseling.
And so now we're supposed to, give you this sage advice.
Well, Marlon said that. Is abstinence even realistic? First of all, again, the crazy paradox is, we're saying that abstinence isn't realistic. We're saying that more. Preachers, I know exactly what you're talking about. It was Jamal Harrison Bryan, I want to say, who mentioned abstinence isn't realistic. But again, what I said at the beginning, the numbers state that more teenagers and young adults are being abstinent and celibate. If they're not abstinent or virgins, they go through long periods of celibacy and things like that. So it's like we're in this panic mode where we're just assuming everybody is all the time. But the statistics are actually saying something different in some ways.
Having different sex. They're also
having other types of sex acts.
Yes, other types.
So they're not all having penetrative, but they're different types of penetrative.
Yes.
Which is a joke that's not a joke.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get pregnant doing this.
Right. Spit don't get you pregnant.
Yeah. But also the young people nowadays that I come across,
we really don't need, because I was about to say something, but I just know people are watching. So
a lot of them don't see gender. They'll say 1 minute I'll be in love with you,
asexual.
And the next minute I'll be in love with her. So they just, if they feel that they have that connection, that's.
But again, that love is not necessarily translating to sex. Wild, reckless sexual behavior.
No, it's not.
I don't think that's happening. He just got tested during the show. He's going to share his results.
No,
I do have to test somebody Wednesday.
I have a daughter, 20, and she's, from that younger generation, and trying to understand them. I'll ask her questions, and she was saying how you were saying like the lines are blurred now.
They are.
There's no,
You mean sexually?
Sexually.
You just love who you love.
Sexually,
you're just into who you're into.
And she said it's more about the energy of the person.
So it's just a fluid.
Right.
Yep.
So it's more about the energy of the person than it is the sex of the person.
I mean, a lot of dudes was in love with Prince and wouldn't admit it. I mean, there's a lot of, hey, you put them eyes on them, there's nothing they can do about it.
What?
Right. I mean, because we're not, again, go back to that masculinity, man. But you look at some of these old bands and the way y'all were dressed in the 80s and stuff, man. Y'all was looking at androgynous. Right. It's tight. Right. It's fishnets. I'm not surprised at all about the AIDS epidemic after all that.
Would you guys, would you guys be more willing to talk about preventive measures? Like
yes.
PrEP?
Absolutely.
Yes, talk about abstinence. Yes, don't do it. Yes, I like that. But also,
condoms.
But condoms and PrEP and stuff like that.
What's
right?
PrEP?
PrEP is it's PrEP and there's PEP.
PrEP and PEP.
PEP is post-exposure prophylactic. What that means is that say somebody who has a sexual encounter and even rape, if they had a sexual encounter and didn't know somebody's HIV status,
they start taking it right away.
Yes, within 72 hours.
Okay.
It has to be 72 hours. That's PEP. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylactic. What that means is that it's a pill that you take every day or a shot you can take every other month.
Okay.
One's called Descovia, it's Truvada.
Right.
And then the other one is called Aptitude.
More gay people commercials.
Yeah. I'm working with
I know, but I'm just saying they all.
Yeah,
I did see those.
But it's misleading. But
right.
Anybody who is sexually active can take this. And it's affordable. In Ohio, you can get it for free.
Okay.
So basically, these things help you from contracting
it, or if you've had it. And so yes, but again, remember the condoms in schools debate. Back when it was a more of an epidemic, at least it was thought to be. And there was this, pass out condoms in school. Well, that's just going to encourage kids to do it and do stuff. And then you can pass it out under the guise of protection. But when they're in the moment, they might not use it, fumble, this, that, or the other. And, again, I think that is the honest conversation that pastors in a room, and I can already imagine the pastors I could be in a room with and some of the answers we would get, or most likely, and Pastor Jeff, you can attest to this, non-answers.
Absolutely.
Everyone will walk away from these situations non-committal and not taking a strong, which is the story of our lives, that we end up taking these strong, definitive stances on just about anything. And most people seem like, well, maybe, I guess it could help. Or we heard the whole story of, well, nobody really going to my church is really dealing with that, and okay, tell us the oldest people that you have heard about.
I had three, when Pastor was at our church, Ken Holland, we had 3 people in our church that stood up and I found out that was HIV positive. 3 people.
What's the oldest ages or age ranges that have you found surprising? You talked about 53 to, you were talking women 50 or 30 to?
I would say the surprising 50 to 65, 70. Finding out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real quick, before I know we got to go, Pastor Todd, you have a daughter.
Yes.
It's now 9th grade.
Let's not bring that up. 10th grade.
10th grade. Lord have mercy.
Yeah,
so,
grade.
Have you had this talk, or are you preparing yourself for this talk?
Her mother, they've done the talk.
Is the talk abstinence or
the
protection?
talk is definitely abstinence.
Okay.
The talk is definitely abstinence.
And I had to talk with my daughter, and that's exactly what it was. It was straight abstinence. It was,
yeah.
Well, just talking, being fathers, coming from a woman, abstinence, yes, but also tell her how to ask questions.
Okay.
Teach her how to, if she's in a situation and she's feeling pressured, how to get out of that.
Okay.
Calmly. How to maneuver her way out of certain things, or sometimes young people feel trapped, or we feel trapped, and I'm about to go ahead and just give them some.
Right.
Some feel trapped. But being that age at 9th grade, I'm just remembering when I was young, having that conversation. He's talking all this, and he's talking to me all these sweet things in my ear, and it's how to get out of that, how to start asking more questions, more conversations.
Homeschooling is the answer. Homeschooling.
She plays sports too.
She's not allowed to do any of that. Scott was saying, are you implying, and we're about done, thank y'all for hanging with us, are you implying that the church is too focused on current statistics and trends and less on the word regarding taboos? In a way, yeah. I think we kind of let the news and whatever gets thrown at us, and this is kind of the word, this just the the trend of the day is whatever is the latest scare trend, whether it's politically, socially, morally, by the time it's on 2020, it's old news and not a real thing. Like, did you know your kids are having pill parties? And they're passing out stuff at Halloween, and it's like, yeah, you look it up, you're like, it's not even real. It's like, but not that it's not real, but it might already be so far down the line. And again, statistics shift. Churches are consistently slow and behind the times of shifts and trends that are happening in the quote unquote real world. Yeah. And we kind of keep going off of sort of the moralistic panic of, and we look at things like the music videos and pushing of envelopes in movies and media, and we just assume, well, our kids just must be all screwing each other in the hallways all day at school and that kind of thing. And the statistics can be, not to say local things aren't happening, but the things are just diving, but we're still living in this world. Yeah. And again, not even having real conversations, because a lot of our churches don't have younger people to have real conversations with. Or we just have those so-called, I'm not saying that they are, but good church kids who are speaking for everybody else.
Right.
And they might really be that good kid. No doubt about it. They might really be that good kid, but they're not really speaking for the larger culture.
So real quick before we go, and Shelley, what would you, I know you said at the beginning, have these conversations with your partner. Mm-hmm. And we know that, especially when you first start dating, partners lie. They gonna lie. How many people you been? What's your body count?
2.
2. So, I mean.
Carry the 1, add a 0.
What is a real conversation? What is a real conversation to you?
Just having a conversation is starting, have you had an HIV test done? You don't have to make a date out of and go to the clinic. No, I'm not preferring that. But just having a conversation.
Y'all should do clinic dates.
Have you had a test done? Are you just heterosexual? Are you bisexual? Just have those conversations. Because a lot of people that I've been testing out there, and men, their thing is now is I'm bisexual. And okay, thank you. No, thank you. And move on. Some people are okay with that. Some people aren't. Get tested.
Right.
That is the biggest thing for me, is to get tested. Because if you find out early, you can catch it, and then you can get into treatment right away. If you're HIV negative, talk about being on PrEP. Just because I get on, I'm not sexually active, sooner they're giving Viagra to somebody. Somebody's taking Viagra. So okay. Get tested. Getting tested. Talk about being on PrEP. That's.
I'll end with this question: that I'm the black man who thinks the government gave us AIDS.
Huh?
I'm that guy. Let's just say I'm that guy.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that being a part of the stigma of this is all just another government trap? This, the health, the testing stuff. Just in general, how do you deal with that when you run into that, or you realize people have been influenced by that?
Oh, I really haven't ran across somebody like that.
Oh, you haven't ran across?
Well,
no.
Don't take the test and see what happens. Keep on being out there.
Right.
Live in Bolivia. Be Bolivians. I mean, everybody needs to know their status.
Right.
Everybody. Married or
I'm not the guy, by the way, that believes that. I was just playing,
No, but I heard people tell me, I thought HIV was gone. No, it's not gone. It's just forgotten.
They replaced it with COVID.
They replaced it with COVID too. But they also, people don't understand, one of the pills that you were taking for COVID was, one of the medicines is HIV medicine.
Wow.
One of the medicines in the shot is the HIV medicine.
Wow.
In the COVID medicine.
So y'all all got it now.
It's a treatment.
Y'all got the AIDS.
It's treatment.
This has been a phenomenal discussion.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, we gotta expand on this. Obviously, there's a lot about sexuality and other things that we need to, continue to unpack, because there's an intersection that just can't be denied. And again, that impacts how and when and if at all we're having these conversations, because we are squeamish on the sexuality conversation. And I concur. Get tested. You should get tested.
Wednesday's HIV National HIV Black Awareness Day.
Yes.
HIV AIDS National Black HIV AIDS Awareness Day is Wednesday. Get tested. Get tested.
Trina said, "Come get some of her soul rolls and go
get tested."
And get tested.
Right.
Get yourself a
That's
soul
my girl,
roll and
yes.
get your test done.
I have support. I'm glad I have supporters like Trina and some of. I've been fortunate and not had bad experience with it, so I'm truly blessed. Truly blessed.
Okay.
I commend you.
Oh, thank you.
For standing up and being that voice. I know it was hard for you at first. It had to be, but we need more people like you. We need more people.
It's hard
like
sometimes
you.
now, even now, but
I really appreciate you coming on.
thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we're really grateful that you guys are on. What is your organization and what do you represent?
Equitox Health.
Equitox Health.
Equitox, EQUITAS Health. I'm the prevention health navigator.
Okay.
Which just consists of me going out, like I said, doing HIV testing, Hep C testing, syphilis testing. I sign people up for PrEP. If you get PrEP free in Ohio. Free. I can get you access to insurance. If you don't have insurance, I can get you insurance. We'll pay for that. I'm out there in Boardman. It's right there on Tiffany Boulevard at 7067 Tiffany Boulevard. I'm also in Akron. We have a clinic in Akron now, which is a lot easier to deal with because dealing with a lot of providers in this area is hard. Providers don't still want to talk about it. They don't feel that it's an epidemic, which it is. It is truly an epidemic. I think we have end the HIV epidemic for 2030. They want the epidemic end by then.
They want to end it.
And it's not. It's in the black community. If they don't get on board, it's not going to happen.
Y'all got
It's
6
not.
years.
Let's help
not
end
gonna
it, y'all.
Let's make it happen. So we're gonna have to make some commitments. I can't say for sure. I know my church is gonna say another cause. Like, dude, we're building beds. We're helping Martians. We're we're saving the whales.
And if you need me to come talk, let me know.
Yeah.
I'll come in,
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we have a Brotherhood Summit coming up, and this has not been discussed, but it can be something that we can bring about and say, how can we implement this into our overall programming and to really encourage that. So thank you so much. Again, cyber hand, cyber heart, cyber thumbs up for Shelley Turner. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
You're a wonderful model of what it means to speak up and speak out. And you did a brave thing because this is the first time you've just gone on a public platform outside of like that recent news thing and just talk about it. So
yes, it is.
We're really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Big Mike, anything you want to share with us?
No show next week for the Super Bowl, but we might pop up.
We might pop up. If it gets boring, we might show up and entertain y'all.
If Usher ain't singing right.
Well, Jeff will do his own Usher. All right, there we go. Thank you for watching Religiously Incorrect.
Whoa, yeah.
That's not even a song.
Yeah.
It's not even a...
It's the Usher challenge.
What Usher challenge? Oh,
Like, don't you know the Usher challenge?
when they all do the runs and stuff?
Yeah, the runs.
Peace, y'all.
Hey, you're definitely challenged. You're definitely challenged.
Yeah, that was challenging.
I appreciate it so much.